Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf, which is Pesachim Tzadik Zayin. We are 6 lines from the top of the Amud. Omar Shmuel, Kol shebechatas mesa. Rashi will tell us, there is a halacha l'Moshe Sinai. 5 times a korban chatas will be allowed to die. Kol shebechatas mesa. These 5 situations where when they occur to a korban chatas, it is mesa. But Pesach karev shlamim. If a similar situation would arise with a korban Pesach, in that case the Pesach will be used not as a Pesach but rather as a shlamim. As we know, moisar ha Pesach karev shlamim, the leftover korban Pesach is used as a shlamim. The first part of Shmuel's formula is, when we have misa by chatos, if a corresponding situation would arise with a korban Pesach, the Pesach will now be directed to be used as a shlamim. Shmuel continues, V'kol shebechatos roya. Whenever we have a scenario that by a chatos it wouldn't be allowed to die, rather roya would be the process. Roya means it would be allowed to roam the fields till it gets a mum. Then you take that animal, you sell it, use the money for the nedava, for the oilos and the Beis Hamikdash. If we have a situation by chatos which would result in roya, but Pesach nami roya, if the same situation would arise with a korban Pesach, roya would be the way to go. So in short, according to Shmuel, we have a formula like this. When a chatos is mesa, a Pesach is shlamim. When a chatos is roya, a similar situation by Pesach would also result in roya. Let's just finish the Gemara. Rabbi Yehuda Amar, "Ein a Pesach karev shlamim el shenimtza achar shchita al kodem shchita loy." Before we explain Rabbi Yehuda, perhaps let's take a look at Rashi, who will explain Shmuel for us. Rashi here is 9 lines from the top of the Amud. Amar Shmuel kol shebechatos mesa v'chulu. Rabbi Yehuda Amar, "Ein a Pesach karev shlamim el shenimtza achar shchita al kodem shchita loy." Okay, let's go back to Shmuel. Says Rashi, kol shebechatos mesa. What is that? Chamesh chatois mesos halacha l'Moshe Sinai. We learn from halacha l'Moshe Sinai 5 different types of chatois will be mesa. Koisen l'kipa, they put it into this closed room, they mesas and they die. What are the 5 examples of chatas which are limisa? Number 1, vlad chatas, an offspring of a korban chatas. Utmuras chatas, if one did a substitute on a chatas, he takes a behemoth shel and says, this will be in exchange of the chat for the chatas. Now, you're not allowed to do that, but the Torah says if one should do that, this exchanges for that, we say that they're actually both kaddish. While Yehu Tmurasi are kaddish, the halacha of a Tmuras chatas is, you don't bring it as a korban chatas, rather, it goes lamisa. Number 3, v'chatas shemesa ba'aleh, a chatas whose owner passed away. A chatas is meant to be mechaper. On the chet, there's no owner, there's no chatas. V'chatas sheneskaper ba'aleh adei acheres, she'avda zois, v'achkach nimtzis. So this is the 4th case. A chatas sheneskaper ba'aleh ba'acheres. A chatas went missing, the owner was mafresh another chatas, and was miskaper with that other chatas. And afterwards this was found. It goes lemis. The 5th one is Ush'abra Shnasa. If it's past a year old, no longer suitable for chatas, it goes lemis. So in total we have 5 cases of a chatas which is lemis. V'nokat Shmuel gabe Pesach simon. And Shmuel applies this simon, this formula to Pesach as well. He says like this: V'omer kol shebechatos mesa. Any scenario, any situation where should it happen with a chatas, it would result in misa. If a similar situation would arise with a korban Pesach, it is used as a korban shlamim. That's the formula. Misa by chatas equals shlamim by Pesach. The kasalka daitach da kulu mesos the chatas. The Gemara figures at this point that we have an even formula. All those 5 cases described by the chatas, which result in misa, the akulu mesas the chatas, the ashkechan, gabe Pesach, karev shlamim. All those 5, whichever one can be found by Pesach, If they should happen to a Pesach, you will bring it as a Shlomim. Dahainu, which really is only 4 because a Pesach is a Zochar. So the concept of Vlad Pesach doesn't apply, but all the other ones, all 4 other ones will apply, down to Tmuras Pesach, or Pesach Shemesa Balov, or Chipra Balov, or She'aver Shnasa. In all these 4 cases, Krev and Shlomim. So when we have Misa by Chatas, we have Shlomim by Pesach. The Kol She'B'Chatas Roya, whenever a situation warrants Re'iyah by Chatas, you let it pasture to get some mum, and then you sell it. The same thing would apply to Korban Pesach. It goes L'Re'iyah. You don't actually use the Korban for a Shlomim, rather, its value, its money, will be used to purchase a Shlomim. The Gemara soon will explain to us exactly what is the situation whereby Chatas would be allowed to be Roya, and the same by Pesach. Concludes Rashi, Umisa v'Re'iyah lav kula v'chumra ika b'chad meidach. You meant to know that Misa or Re'iyah is not really a reflection of a kula or a chumra. It's just a fact. Sometimes it goes l'misa, sometimes l'Re'iyah. V'hai denoked gabe misa dechatas b'Pesach karev. And this that Shmuel tells us that a situation which would require misa by chatas would generate Shlomim by Pesach, v'gab Re'iyah dechatas b'Pesach Re'iyah, and the Re'iyah, the pasturing process applied to chatas, would generate a corresponding Re'iyah process by Pesach. Lav tama kayav. He's not providing a reason. Because over here by chatas there's misa, over here there's karev shlamim by Pesach. No, it was someone ba'amu. It's not an explanation. It's not giving us a reason. It's not justifying, rationalizing it. Just giving you a similar formula. Oh, easy way to remember. So again, according to Shmuel, we have situations by korban chatas which would result in misa being applied. If a similar scenario arises with a Pesach, you take that Pesach and bring it as a Shlomim. If we have a situation where by chatas it would result in Roya, you take it and allow it to get a mum and use its value, the money received in exchange for the korban. You take that money and use it for the Oila and the Beis HaMikdash for Handava. If it happens to a Pesach, you also allow it to be Roya, and you take the value, you take the money, and purchase a Shlamim with it. So that's Shmuel's formula. Let's go back to the Gemara. Let's back up a bit to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda Amar, Eina Pesach Karev Shlamim. The only time a Korban Pesach, which was unused, an unused Korban Pesach, will be used as a Shlamim, is only El Shenimtza Acha Shchita. If it was found after the Shchita. So it went missing. You took another korban, used it as a Pesach, and then you find the first one. It surfaced after the Shechita, in which case it was never really here doing the Hakrah of the other one, and it wasn't rejected. It wasn't around to be rejected. He wasn't a suitable candidate. It wasn't up for consideration. So since he arrived only after Shechita, you can take that leftover korban Pesach and use it as a Shlom. Avo koydem Shechita loy, but should that lost Korban Pesach surface prior to the Shechita of his counterpart? He lost them, you mafresh another one, you found the first one, and then you makriv, you sheichet one of those two, which in effect casts a rejection on the other one. You would doichet b'yadayim, as we learned yesterday. In that case, you cannot no longer use that extra Korban Pesach as a Shlomim. Rather, you take it and you let it get a mum, you sell that balmum, and use the money for a Shlamim. Now, which way is Rabbi Yehuda disagreeing with Shmuel? The more later will conclude that the machlokes revolves around the same issue we discussed yesterday. A leftover korban Pesach is meant to be used as a Shlamim. The question is, are you makar that very korban as Shlamim, or is it only regarding its value? You take it, you let it get a mum, sell it, and use the money for Shlamim. Which way is it? More yesterday told us. It depends whether it was rejected or not. If it's an unrejected Moiser Pesach, then it's used as a Shlamim. It in itself is Karev Shlamim. But if for some reason it was rejected, he was doich b'yadayim, he pushed it away. He neglected it. And chose another one in its stead. That is dochi. It's considered rejected. and can no longer be used for the Mizbeach directly. It's been rejected from carbon use. Rather, you must arrange to sell it and direct the value to be used as a shlamim. Now, just as we learned yesterday, machlokes between Rav and Reb Zera, what moment, which point in time will determine whether it was rejected or not? Rav tells us it's the shechita moment which determines. So if they're both here during the shechita of one of them, which in effect creates a dichui, a rejection on the other one, which is not going to be karev, then in effect that one was rejected and can no longer be used as a shlamim. That was Rabbi's approach, which corresponds to Rabbi Yechon's approach. He says that the only time you can use a leftover Pesach as a shlamim is if it wasn't around at the point of shechita and wasn't directly rejected. But if it was here koydem shechita, even if it arrived after chatzot, but if it's here during shechita of the other one, that in effect creates a rejection at chiyah, and can no longer be used as a shlamim. Rather, the value will be directed for shlamim use. So Rabbi Yechon here concurs with Rabbi Shita, and Shmuel, as the Gemara soon will explain, apparently holds like Rabbi Zera that the chatzois point is kaiveya. That determines, that's the criterion. Was the animal here during chatzois, which is the start of the zman shechita? If he was here at that point, he's been corralled into the Korban Pesach realm. He's been counted in, and if you go and you overlook him and you neglect him, that in effect is a rejection, a tchiyah. But if the lost carbon only surfaced after chatzos, in which case the initial point of his mashchita passed by without his presence, he wasn't here, he wasn't a suitable candidate, in that case, he's not really committed to the Pesach cause, to the extent that if you neglect him and you ignore him, he feels rejected. He becomes dach. No. If he missed the first point of chatzos, the beginning of his mashchita, it's no longer considered a rejection if you choose not to choose him. So that in effect is the machlokes, the underlying machlokes between Shmuel and Rabbi Yechon, as the Gemara soon will conclude. Okay, let's get back to the words. Shmuel tells us there's a formula, very simple formula like this. We have Misa by Chatas will correspond to Shlomim by Pesach. If a Chatas is Roya, in a similar situation by Pesach, it would also be Roya. And as the Gemara soon will conclude, Shmuel meant to point out that a lost Korban Pesach, which resurfaces even a short moment after Chatzos, you can take that lost Korban Pesach and use it as a shlom, even if you choose to be makriv the other one. Because Chatzos is the point that's kaveya, and if he wasn't here during Chatzos, he's not really committed to the cause to the extent that if you ignore him, he becomes neglected and rejected. And therefore, according to Shmuel, a lost Korban Pesach in this type of situation can be used for a shlomim. Whereas Rabbi Yechon tells us, no, Rabbi Yechon Amar, let's see inside, Eina Pesach Karev Shlomim. A Pesach cannot be used as a shlomim, even if it's a leftover Korban Pesach, a Moisra Pesach. If it was lost and rediscovered, you cannot use it as a shlomim because in effect you rejected it by choosing his counterpart. Ela shenimtza achar shchita. The only time you can use it as a shlom if it was found after shchita. It wasn't around when you decided to prefer his friend. But if it was here before shchita, in which case they were both present during shchita, the one that was nishchat is the Pesach, and the other one, in effect, was rejected. It was rejected from his be'ach use, in which case you cannot use it for a shlom, and rather it has to be roya. You take it and you arrange for it to get a mum, and then sell it and use the money for shlom. Continues the Gemara. Let's analyze Shmuel's formula before we get to this conclusion on Amud Beis. What exactly is the point of contention between Shmuel and Rabbi Yechanan? He holds the shchita is the kaveh, he holds the chatzos is the kaveh. Let's just analyze Shmuel's formula and get it clear. Shmuel tells us that the situation which requires by Misa, by Chatos, requires Shlomim by Pesach. A situation where a Chatos is Roya, a Pesach also will be Roya. Maskler of Yosef, he has a kash. Uklolu, is this a bona fide formula? I'll give you an example of a re'iyah by a chatas which is past its first year. The re'iyah azla. It goes out and it roams the fields till it gets a mum. That's the process applied to a chatas in that situation. The Amar Shem Malakish. Chatas shavar shnasa. Roin oisak ilu hi oimedes v'isakvaris. A chatas which is past the year, we view it as though it's a carbon sitting in a Beis HaKfaros, inaccessible to the Kohen. It's past the year. You can no longer bring it as a chatas. And what happens? V'roya. And you allow it to be roya to get a mum. So chatas past the year has re'iyah. But if a similar situation would arise by a korban Pesach, a Pesach which is past its first year, no longer available to be used for a Pesach, what do you do with it? It's Ma'aseh Pesach. You take that very animal and use it as a shlamim. You don't need to be roya, desanya. Kesef, the word kesef in the Torah is l'rabbi, it's a Pesach la'aliyah. To teach you that a tail of the korban Pesach will go on the Mizbeach. K'shoyim im kesef, what's the added word im? L'rabbi is a Pesach she'avar shnasai. A Pesach which is past the year. U'shlamim mabon machmas ha-Pesach. Or any other type of shlamim which is derived from Pesach. For instance, a tmur of a Pesach. These are examples of moiser ha-Pesach. What happens? It's processed as a shlamim. To be marba all these cases, l'chol mitzvahs or mitzvahs shlamim, shetu'unim smicha, you have to do smicha, u'nesacham, bring the nesacham carbon, u'tnufas chazav v'shoik, tnuf on the chazav v'shoik parts. You treat it like an ordinary shlamim. Im eis, why does the pasuk have to say im eis? Im is a mafsik, hifsik inyan. It's coming to create that interruption. Limed al eis, she'ein ton aliyah is coming to teach us that a goat, shlamim, will not have the din of aliyah. The tail of the goat will not be brought in the mizbeach. In any case, we see that a Pesach, which is past the year, is considered a proper shlamim, a moisar Pesach, it's karev shlamim. As opposed to a similar situation by chatas, where it is roya. You take it, and you let it get a mum, and use the money for nadava. It seems to be inconsistent with Shmuel. It tells us that when a chatas is roya, a Pesach is roya. Amar Lei says the Gemara ki Amar Shmuel ba'avudim. Shmuel's formula that we have a situation by chatas which requires misa. By Pesach, you would take that same animal, bring it as a shlamim. Or when we have a chatas which is roya, the same situation by Pesach would be roya. He was speaking about a very unique and niche, a very specific type of situation. Ba'avudim, lost animals. In the realm of lost animals, this formula sticks. But he wasn't referring to animals which were rejected, unsuitable for akrava, such as an animal which is past a year. He wasn't speaking about those examples. His formula only applies to lost animals. If a lost animal by chatas goes lamisa, by Pesach it will be used as a shlamim. If by chatas it is roya, by Pesach it's roya. Says, okay, let's analyze the formula in this context. Do you have a situation by a case of a ovid that chatas is roya and Pesach is roya? We have a situation where a chatas was lost. He was mafresh another chatas in its place, and then the other one resurfaces. What do you do with it? L'ri'iyah azla. It goes l'ri'iyah, you let it pasture to get some mum. And as the Gemara soon will tell us, when a same situation arises by a korban Pesach, you take that animal and you bring it as a shlamim. You don't have to be roya. This not. Hifresh chatas ve'avda. Suppose he was mafresh a chatas, then it got lost. V'hifresh acher stachtea, and he was mafresh another one in its place. V'nitzis the rishon, the first one was found. Now you have two chatois standing before you. Achas men tekorev, ushniya Thomas divi Rebbe. Rebbe holds one of them is brought as a chatas, the other one is Thomas, because it gets rejected. Once you use one at the expense of the other one is dachoy, and it goes lemisa. That's a chiddush of Rabbi. No, chatas mesa. The only time a chatas is mesa el shenimtzes la'achash niskapru balam. That's only if it was found and discovered after the owner already used the other chatas. He was already niskapru with the other one. Now this chatas resurfaces. There's no use for it, and it goes lemisa. We imply koydim sheniskapru balam. However, if he should discover that lost chatas prior to kapar, in which case we have two standing before him, roya, then the unwanted one doesn't go lemisa, rather it's roya. So according to Chachamim, a lost and rediscovered karban chatas would be roya. V'ilu Pesach, but when it comes to karban Pesach in a similar situation, what would we do with the Pesach? Take and use it as a shlam. You don't have to go through the re'iyah process. If you lost the karban Pesach, you rafish another one, then you rediscovered the old one. It was nimtza acha chatzos. Koydem shchita, but it's still before the shchita. Now you have two karban Pesach standing in front of you. You choose one at the expense of the other one. Kar shlamim. The other one is used as shlamim. Apparently, the Gemara at this point figures that chatzos is the point that's kaiveya, and if he wasn't here during the point of chatzos, he was only found after chatzos, in which case he wasn't rejected. As long as he wasn't here during chatzos, you can still use him as a shlam. Okay, in any case, we see that we have a similar situation by chatas as by Pesach, and the result is very different. A lost karban by chatas, a lost and found karban by chatas, goes l'ri'iyah, and a lost and found Pesach is used as a shlamim. And this is inconsistent with Shmuel, who tells us that the halacha of a re'iyah by chatas corresponds to re'iyah by Pesach. Says the more Shmuel could Rabbi Svirlei. Apparently Shmuel is like Rabbi that we just mentioned. D'amar avudel misa azla. That when the chatas goes missing and then is rediscovered, even if it was here during the kapar of the other one, it wasn't found after the kapar when it was too late. It was here. Rabbi says it goes lemisa. That's halacha of a chatas that goes lemisa. Okay, so now it works. Because in a similar situation by Pesach, we just learned that you actually take that leftover Pesach and use it as a shlamim. So Misa by Chatos corresponds to shlamim by Pesach, which is exactly what Shmuel told us. Says the Gemara, V'hakol avuda l'Rebbi Mesa. But it still doesn't work, because according to Rebbe, every lost Chatos goes lemisa. If it was lost, and then found, and chose not to use it, it goes lemisa, as we just learned. Vilu Pesach, but when it comes to karban Pesach, it's not necessarily so black and white. Suppose it was lost before chatzos, and it was rediscovered before chatzos. In which case, it was here at the initiation of this man shchita. Roya. The halacha is that you can no longer use it as a shlamim because it gets rejected when it's not used. When you choose to use the other one at the expense of this one. In any case, we see that by chatas, all lost items go lemisa, and by Pesach, we have a situation where we can have a lost karban Pesach found before chatzos, and it goes l're'iyah. You don't use it as a shlamim. So again, we have a kasha on Shmuel. Shmuel tells us that a situation which results in misa by chatas results in shlamim by Pesach. Here we have a situation where chatas goes lemisa, but Pesach cannot be used as a shlamim. Rather, it's roya. Answers the Gemara. You're talking about a karban Pesach which was rediscovered before chatzos. Koydem chatzos lavavadu. That's not what we're speaking about. When we're talking about an animal which was lost and rediscovered. That's not what Shmuel is speaking about. Shmuel spoke about examples of a korban which was lost during the Zman HaKrava, when it was within the realm, within the time of Kapar and Hakrava. And in that case, certainly, the formula holds true. You're speaking about a korban Pesach which was rediscovered before Chatzos, before the Zman Shchita ever arrives? That's not the Ava that he's speaking about. Kedarava. Dama Rava. Even by a Chatos, if a similar situation would arise, it would not be considered a lost Chatos. Dama Rava. Avedas Laila. Lav Shema Aveda. Even according to Rebbe, who holds that every lost Chatos goes Lamisa. But if it was lost at night and rediscovered while it was still nighttime, Laila is not a Zman of Shchita and Akrava, that's not considered Avad. Avad means it was lost from Akrava. It disengaged from its owner. But when it's still Laila, it's not yet Zman Akrava, the fact that it was lost doesn't adversely affect the animal whatsoever. So in that situation, it would not go Lamisa. If it would happen by a Chatas, even according to Rebbe. Rather, as Rashi says, it would go L'Re'iyah. And that indeed corresponds with Pesach. The Pesach was lost and rediscovered before Chatzos. You say that the animal is Roya. Says the Gemara, Ela Roya l'Rebbe Hechem Shkachasla. So we worked out one half of that formula of Shmuel. We have a lost Chatos. According to Rebbe, it goes Lamisa. And a similar situation by Pesach would result in the Pesach being brought as a Shlomim. Right? We're speaking about a Chatos which was lost during daytime and rediscovered. You chose one over the other. The other one becomes rejected and goes Lamisa. If you have a similar situation by Korban Pesach, which was rediscovered only after Chatzos, in which case the initial Zman Shchita, the initiation of Zman Shchita passed without it being here, it's not really considered a rejected Pesach, and you can actually use it as a Shlom. So Misa by Chatos corresponds to Shlomim by Pesach. So the first half of Shmuel's formula works. Shmuel had a second half to his formula. We have a scenario which results in Roya by Chatos. It will generate Roya by Pesach as well. Ela Roya l'Rebbe Hechem Shkachasla. What do we even have a case, according to Shita's Rebbe, of a lost Korban Chatos, which will be Roya? Says Rabbi Yeshua, we do have one situation. Suppose initially he was mafresh two chatois, two animals for his chatos, lachrayis as a backup, just in case he loses one, or the other one. Here it's different than an animal which was lost and another one was designated in its place, in which case one of them is considered a rejected chatos. Here, from the start, he was mafresh two chatois to back each other up as a security measure. In that case, if he chooses to use one, not the other one, well, naturally so, he's only going to use one. Since initially this is the way the process was meant to take place, it's not considered rejection. Miskapar ba'achas men, u'shniya tira. You use one of them for the kapara, and the other one is tira. Iroya, achi stoiv, and use the money for an adav. This is even according to Rebbe, who generally holds that a lost chatas, which was left unused, goes lamisa, but here it's different. This is not a lost chatos. This was two chatois which were designated simultaneously. These were the chatois meant to generate kapara, and therefore he uses one and the other one doesn't go lamisa. Rather, it's roya. So here's a situation where, even according to Rabbi, you have re'iyah by chatas. The question was, where do we have it? Here we have it. Says Gemara, it still doesn't work for us. V'ilu b'Pesach ke'agav nekarev shlamim. Shmuel tells us, when we have roya by chatas, we have roya by Pesach. That's not so. The same scenario by Pesach would generate a shlamim. If he was mafresh two animals for his korban Pesach, He used one, not the other. The other one's called a Moshe Pesach Gomer, Rashi says. This is the classic Moshe Pesach, leftover from a Pesach, and it's used as a shlom. You don't have to be roya, you can actually use the carbon itself for shlom. El Shmuel Shimon Svirle says more apparently Shmuel, who espoused this formula, holds like Reb Shimon, who says that indeed there is no such a concept of roya by chatos. The Omar Chomesh Chatos Mesois, all these 5 categories that we discussed earlier of chatos, Golamisa, in all their various applications, all different situations, scenarios, there are no roya situations by a chatos. So Reb Shimon holds that even in the case of Marfish, Shtei Chatos Lachrayis, one of them is used and the other one goes Lamisa. So you're right, there is no roya by chatas. So when Shmuel tells us that a chatas, which is mesa, if a similar situation arises by Pesach, it goes l'shamim, that works. And indeed, there really isn't another option. There isn't another alternative by chatas. There is nothing other than misa. And that leads us to the next kasha. V'haroya l'Reb Shimon l'slei klal. But according to Reb Shimon, there is no concept of re'iyah by chatas. It all goes l'misa. So what did Shmuel mean when he said that if we have a situation by chatas which requires re'iyah, a similar situation by Pesach will have re'iyah. There's no such a thing as re'iyah by chatas. That's why you're right. Shmuel never said that. Shmuel na mechada ka'amar. Shmuel really only mentioned the first half of that formula. One thing, kol shebachatas mesa, a Pesach karav shlamim. When a chatas goes l'misa, the same situation by Pesach results in the Pesach being brought as a shlamim. That's all he was saying. He follows Reb Shimon that a Pesach, that a chatas in all these cases will go l'misa, and therefore a Pesach will be used as a shlamim. And of course we're speaking about the lost animals. A lost chatas, which goes lemisa, a lost carbon Pesach will be used as a shlam. Says the Gemara, Umay kamashmalan. What's Shmuel coming to tell us? We already learned that in our Mishnah, that a Pesach which was found after Shechita, it's used as a shlam. What's Shmuel coming to tell us here? Says the Gemara, well, let's remember we had a machlekes regarding the exact definition of the word koydem shchita and achar shchita in that Mishnah. Is it in reference to the actual maser shchita or the zman shchita? Right? In machlekes in Rabbi Zera, if one has a korban Pesach which went missing, he was mafresh another one in its place, and then he discovers the lost korban Pesach. The Mishnah tells us, if it arrives before Shechita and in effect is a suitable candidate for the Akrava and was rejected from Akrava, a rejected carbon can no longer be used on the Mizbeach, so instead of bringing it as a shlam, you have to use its money for shlam. But if it was only found after Shechita, in which case it wasn't here, it wasn't rejected during the process of the other carbon, then you could take that Moshe Pesach and use it as a shlam. The question was, what does Lefnei Shechita mean? What does La'achar Shechita mean? Does it mean the actual Shechita? Or does it mean the Zman Shechita, the Chatzos? And that is the machlekes between Shmuel and Rabbi Yehuda. Says the Gemara, Shmuel's coming to tell us that Shechita means the Zman Shechita. La'afuke med Rabbi Yehuda. He's coming to undo Rabbi Yehuda's Shechita, oppose Rabbi Yehuda's view. The Amar, Rabbi Yehuda was the one who tells us, Eina Pesach Korav Shlamim. The only time a lost Pesach can be used, the actual korban can be used as a shlamim, is only El Shenimtza Achar Shechita. If it was rediscovered after the Shechita of its counterpart, in which case it wasn't here during the processing of the other one, in which case it wasn't rejected. Aval Koydem Shechita Loi. But if it surfaced before the Shechita, even if he missed Chatzos, but he's here during the Shechita of its counterpart, that in effect creates a dichoy, rejection on this one, and it can no longer be used directly on the Mizbeach. It needs to be roya, to get a mum, and you take the money, use it for Shlam. Alma shchita kava. Apparently, according to Rabbi Yehuda, shchita is what determines. The key is the moment of a shchita. That's Shmuel's shit. That's Rabbi Yehuda's shit. Kamash malon. That's why Shmuel comes to tell us, no. Chatzois kava. Chatzois is the moment that determines the halacha. And if the lost Pesach was discovered only after Chatzois, in which case it wasn't here at the start of the Zman Shchita, in which case it wasn't really fully committed to the Hakrovas Pesach process. So even if you ignore him, you neglect him, you take the other one in its stead, it's not considered a rejection, and you can bring it as a shlam. And that's the Pshat of Shmuel. Shmuel tells us, Kol shebechatas meisa, all situations of a chatas, a lost carbon chatas, which was lost during the hafrasha of the other one, in which case it goes lamisa, right? Shmuel follows up Shimon Shita, all the lost chatois, all situations of chatois avudim go lamisa. If a similar situation arises by a carbon Pesach, for instance, you have your Pesach, got lost, you mafresh another one, and you rediscovered the other one, and you only found it after Chatzos. That's called Ovid. It was lost at least during part of the Zman Shchita, otherwise it's not called Ovid. It was gone, it wasn't here during at least a portion of the Zman Shchita, at the point of Chatzos. The Chiddush is even if it was found before the Shchita. The Shchita of his counterpart does not constitute a rejection. Chatzos determines. If he wasn't here during Chatzos, he's not really committed to the cause, and not using him doesn't constitute a rejection. And therefore, it can be used directly as a shlam. So in short, we have a lost Pesach which was found. Can it be used as a shlam, or only the domim as a shlam? You have to let it pasture, get a mum, and sell it, use the money for a shlam. Which way is it? Depends if it was rejected or not. What moment constitutes rejection? Of machlekes. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's the shchita moment that determines whether it was rejected or not. If it was here during shchita and he was overlooked, that's called a rejection. Whereas according to Shmuel, you don't have to have the shchita. As long as he wasn't here during chatzos, as long as he wasn't here at the initial moment of zman shchita, and even if he was here during shchita, that's not called a dicha, it's not called a rejection, and you can actually bring him as a shlam. Now, just take a moment to summarize the halachas of the chatos, which went missing, which is actually a sugi in Mesechas Tmura, but just in short, we seem to have three shitas here. Rabbi Shimon says, all situations of a chatas which went missing results in misa. Rebbe says, not all situations. For instance, if you mafresh initially two chatois lachrayis and use one and not the other, that's not called a rejection. That's the way it was meant to be. In that case, it doesn't go lemisa. The only time it goes lemisa is if he wasn't here. If you mafresh one, he went missing. He was over. And then you mafresh another one in its place, then the first one goes lemisa. That's the second shita. And the Chachamim hold, no. The only time you have misa is if he was discovered only after the Baalim already had his kapar using another carbon chatas. Continues the Gemara. We have a slightly different version of events. We're going to have the same result. Shmuel says the chatzos is kaveya, Rabbi Yehuda says shchita is kaveya, but we're going to insert another step in the process of the Gemara. Another kasha and a teretz. So we went back to Shmuel. Shmuel gave us a formula. We have Misa by Chatas, we have Shlomim by Pesach. We have Re'iyah by Chatas, we have Re'iyah by Pesach. That was Shmuel's formula. And basically going back to the lower portion of Amud Aleph, the Gemara is looking for corresponding situations to see how this formula we applied. And the Gemara says like this. Well, what about a lost Korban Chatas? According to the Rabbanon, it's Roya. Ve'ilu b'Pesach, and the Gemara asked the Kash, but by Pesach, a similar situation by Korban Pesach. Heicha de'avad v'nimtza achar chatzos hayom. If your Korban went lost, went missing, and then was found after chatzos, koydem shchita, even before shchita, you could have shlomim. You can actually use it as a shlomim because he missed the kickoff of this man shchita. He missed the ascholas man shchita. And since he wasn't here during the beginning of his man shchita, he's not really completely committed to the cause. In which case, even if you use another one instead of him, that is not considered a dechiyah b'yodayim, a rejection, and can use him as a shlomim. So that was the kasha that the Gemara had in Amud Aleph. So far we just copied over the kasha. Again, we have a situation by chatas where it's lost. What is the halacha? Roya achi yistoy, v'yimacher, and you take the money, you v'dava v'medava. And a similar situation by Pesach will result in a shlamim. Says the Gemara, and this is the chiddush of the second lashon. The Gemara will offer a teretz and then refute the teretz. Shmuel karabba svirli. Why can't we say that Shmuel is like Rabbah? What does Rabbah say? The Amar shchita kava. Shchita is the point in time that determines the halacha. If the lost Korban Pesach was discovered before shchita and is present when you are being sheichet his counterpart, that's called a rejection. Even if he wasn't here during chatzos, but if he's here during shchita, that's kaveh. So now, situation we have a chatas which was lost, and it was nimtza after chatzos, before shchita. Shchita is doichem, and he can no longer be used as a shlamim. Rather, you take him and you let him roam till he gets a mum, and then you sell him and direct the money for shlamim use. So that answers the kasha. We have a lost chatas which goes l're'iyah, and a lost Pesach which goes l're'iyah. Says the Rabbi, you can't say that. You can't suggest that according to Shmuel, chatzos is kaveya. Why? Because Rabbi Yehuda shita. There's machlokes here. Apparently there's some sort of difference between Shmuel and Rabbi Yehuda. And we find that Rabbi Yehuda is the one that holds shchita is kaveya, not Shmuel. But since we find that Rabbi Yehuda responds to Shmuel by saying, "Hey, na Pesach karev shlamim." The only time at Pesach, I lost Pesach, I lost and rediscovered Korban Pesach can be used as a shlam in itself, can be used as a shlam is only when it was rejected. Ella shnitzach shchita. It was only discovered after shchita. It wasn't here during the shchita, and it wasn't rejected. But if it was here already from before shchita, and you decided to be sheichet the other one, this one becomes nitche. It becomes rejected and can no longer be used as a shlam. Alma shchita kava. It's pretty clear that according to Rabbi Yehuda, shchita is what sets the bar. It determines the halacha. So if Rabbi Yehuda holds shchita is kaveya, and is coming to disagree with Rabbi Yehuda, if Rabbi Yehuda holds shchita is kaveya and is coming to disagree with Shmuel, apparently Michlal de Shmuel Savar Chatzos Kaveya. Apparently Shmuel holds Chatzos is kaveya. So should you lose your Pesach and rediscover it after Chatzos, it no longer will be considered rejected because he wasn't here at the commencement of the Zman Shchita. And since he wasn't here at that point, he's not really committed to the cause. He's not really considered within the realm of the Korban Pesach to the extent that if you ignore him, it's considered a rejection. Okay, so once you've proven that Shmuel follows the formula of Chatzos Kava, we're back to the kasha. Shmuel tells us if we have a situation by chatas where the animal goes l're'iyah, a similar situation by Pesach goes l're'iyah, how does it work? A lost chatas goes l're'iyah, but a lost Pesach, if it was rediscovered after chatzos, doesn't go l're'iyah. You can actually use it as a shlam. Elo Shmuel k'Rebbi Svirlei. And from here on in until the end of the Gemara, it's basically back to the first Lashon. The way we concluded earlier, apparently Shmuel is like Rebbe. The Amar Avud L'Misa Azla, any lost Chatas will go L'Misa. And therefore the formula works. A lost Chatas goes L'Misa, and a lost Pesach is used as a Shlomim. Says the Gemara V'Hakal Avudim L'Rebbe Mason. Fine, that addresses the first part of Shmuel's formula. A Chatas which goes L'Misa corresponds to a Pesach which goes L'Shlomim. But it still won't work because all situations of Avod by Chatas goes L'Misa. Whereas by Pesach, we have a situation where it goes L'Re'iyah. Vilu Pesach Hechad Avad Kodim Chatzos. Suppose it went missing before Chatzos. V'nimtza Kodim Chatzos and was rediscovered before Chatzos. Raya. Then you can no longer use it as a Shlom because he was here at the initiation, at the start of this Man Shchita. And since you neglected him, you overlooked him, that constitutes a rejection. And can no longer use him as a Shlom. It can no longer be used directly on the Mizbech, have to be Raya. So we have an inconsistency. We have a situation by Chatas, which is L'Misa, and a corresponding situation by Pesach, which is L'Re'iyah. Shmuel told us that Re'iyah by Chatas creates Re'iyah by Pesach. Misa by Chatas creates Shlomim by Pesach. And we have Misa by Chatas and Re'iyah by Pesach. The more answers like before, Kasavar, Kodim Chatzos, Lav Avadu. He holds that something which was lost and rediscovered before Chatzos, that's not the Avad we're speaking about. Avad means it was lost, at least a portion of the time that it was lost was during the Zman Akrava. That's called lost. It wasn't here for the Akrava. But where it was found before Chatzos, that's not called Avad. And even if a situation would happen to Chatas, where it was Avad in a non-Hakrava time, like during the night, all agree that Chatas was Golamisa. Rather, it's used L'Re'iyah, and therefore at Pesach as well, it will be Go L'Re'iyah. Because Savar, or some of Gersa of Kamash Malon, Chatzos Kava, meaning that we go through the whole process of the Gemara, the way we went earlier, till the conclusion that what indeed is Shmuel's Chiddush, what's his point here? What's he trying to teach us? And the conclusion was that he was simply coming to tell us Chatzos is Kaveya. And as the Gemara told us earlier, really Shmuel only said one thing. A situation whereby Chatos would result in Misa, by Pesach results in it being brought as a Shlomim. And he's referring to a lost animal, where by Chatos it always goes L'Misa, it was like Rav Shimon, or Chatos wouldn't go L'Misa, but by Pesach, if it was rediscovered before Chatzos, in that case you have a problem. But if it was rediscovered after Chatzos, then you can actually use it as a Shlom, because he missed the beginning of this Zman Shchita. He wasn't really committed to the cause to the extent that if you ignore him, it's considered a rejection. That was really the main point of Shmuel. Chatzos is Kaveya. So it was discovered before Chatzos, it goes to L'Re'iyah. But after Chatzos, it's not considered a rejection if you don't use him, and it can be used as a Shlom. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda disagreed. He says, Shchita is the key point. Shchita is the criterion. If it was here during the Shchita of the other one, then it's considered rejection. Otherwise, you can use them as a Shlom. So, a short summary of today's daf will go as follows. We have a Korban Pesach, which was Ovid. You took another animal and you mafresh it in its place. We know that a Moisar Pesach generally is used as a Shlomim, unless it was Nitch B'Yadayim, was pushed away, actively pushed away from Akrava, in which case it can no longer be used for Akrava on the Mizbech. Rather, you take it and you let it roam in the fields till it gets a mum, sell it, and use the money for a Shlom. What is considered rejection? Shmuel says, Chatzos is Kaveya. So if you missed Chatzos, he wasn't here at the first point of these Man Shchitas HaPesach. He wasn't really considered as part of the equation here. And therefore, even if you ignore him and neglect him, and you're not makar of him, that's not considered a rejection, and therefore can be used as a shlamim. Whereas according to Rabbi Yehuda, the shchita is kaveya. He must not be present during the shchita of his counterpart. For if he was here during the shchita, that is considered a rejection. And you can no longer use it as a shlamim, rather, only lidmei shlamim. We discussed the chatas, which is lost, which goes lamisa, according to Reb Shimon in all cases. Whereas according to Rebbe, if it was lost b'shas the hafrasha of the other one, that is also grounds for misa. And according to Rabbanon, only if it was avod b'shas kapara of the other one. Be well and hatzlacha rabbah.